Welcome to the Selling Show, where we unpack, repack, and break down exactly how CEOs, founders, and senior executives sell their ideas, point of view, and personal brand to the people who matter most. This is your host, David Newman, and you are in the right place if you want to build market eminence, amplify your influence, and attract high-value prospects, investors, partners, talent, and media opportunities with less chasing and more confidence. Let's go. Welcome to the politics edition of the Selling Show. No, I'm kidding. But my very funny, very engaging guest, Kelly Swanson, is here, and we specifically said we're not going to talk about politics because that's not what this show is about. So we are going to talk about the awesome and amazing Kelly Swanson. Welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. Thanks for having me, David.
So one of my favorite questions that I like to get asked is, how did David Newman become David Newman? So I'm going to ask the same question of you. How did Kelly Swanson become Kelly Swanson? And what were some interesting pit stops along the way to the work that you're doing today?
That's a loaded question, and you know it. You ask any speaker that question, and they're going to follow you for the rest of your life, finishing the story. And yes, it's a question because they look at us up there and they're like, how in the world does somebody end up doing this as a profession? It wasn't planned for sure. My only ambition was to get married and have kids, and just life had a different plan, I guess. David, I'm going to go way back, but I'll only touch there. But now the older I get, the more I'm seeing my life in its full entirety. And, okay, I can kind of see this journey I've been on. When I was a kid, I was very picked on and bullied, the weird kid, the kid you threw things at on the bus, blah, 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 play the violin, insert here. And because of that, I found refuge in books and stories. And I created a whole imaginary town, and I immersed myself, and they followed me everywhere. And even all the way through college, even after college, if you walked into my room, you'd see paper on the wall with neighborhoods drawn out and where people lived. And it was delightfully weird. Now it makes sense. I see what I was doing. But early on, I loved writing and I loved stories. My stories were about nothing, very ordinary, just life around me. And I'd write about what I see, and then I'd change their names so nobody knew who I was talking about. Fast forward, college, went to find a husband, didn't find one, but was an English major because I didn't know what else, I didn't have any real direction. I became a partier there, shy kid, now meets alcohol, and boom. That's where I realized I was funny because Budweiser introduced me to my sense of humor, and I came out of my shell. Still was this writer, in the background. And so out of college, it was just get a job, get a job, go get another one. But in the background of my life, I was still writing these stories and falling in love with all these characters. And then I took a writing class at a community college filled with teachers. They were taking it for some kind of credit. I was taking it for fun. And we had to read our stories to the class. And I was like, whoa. And so I read one of my stories, and the teachers were like, wow, the story's good, but the way you tell it is even better. Would you come to our school and tell the stories to the kids? I was like, but I was like, beer money was still a big partier then. So I started doing that, hated it. Telling stories to kids was not my love language, but the teachers in the room would perk up and they'd laugh in all the right places. They were inspired and motivated, and they loved it. And so at one of those school jobs, and again, I'm doing this on the side I worked in a family business, whatever, blah, 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 blah. I was an office manager for my father's company. And it was funny because he said every time the phone rang and I'd go back to his office to give him the message, I'd already forgotten who was on the phone by the time I got back there. I was kind of the absent-minded professor. He's like, how is it you keep all these characters in your head and your stories, but you can't remember who's on the phone? I'm almost finished, by the way. So anyway, fast forward to the schools. At one of them, there was an art teacher with glitter on her cheeks and sparkled tennis shoes. And she said, you're a storyteller. I was like, okay, whatever. And she said, You need to join us. I was like, what do you mean? It's like it's a cult, which it kind of is. And I joined the North Carolina Storytelling Guild, went to the National Storytelling Festival, and I went, oh, these are my people. This is who I want to be. How do you do this on purpose and make money, which you don't if you're a storyteller? And so I'm plodding along, and my husband, bless him, was really one who said, you have a gift, because I had no self-esteem. He said, you have a gift. You can do something other people cannot do. And I think it's marketable. It's like, really? He said, let's just see where it goes. I had a raw talent. It was raw, but it was there. And then at one of those, I'm kind of coming to not the end of the road, but at the end of this story, at one of those storytelling festivals under a tent, they had brought in a big name, and it was Jeannie Robertson. And so she saw me do my thing and said, you've got something, and this is not the place where you're going to make money at it. You need to go be a speaker. This is the world that'll pay you, but you're going to have to do some things to fit in this world. And so that began my journey as the funny motivational. I didn't even know what I talked about, David, much less knowing how to run a business or market or sell. I still don't know, truth be told. But I came in as an artist going, is this the place where they're going to let me do this? And one more piece of the story, because I think it's interesting. I came in that was 21 years ago, I think, 21, 22 years ago. And I looked around at my peers, and I'm surrounded by trainers and coaches. And I went, oh crap, this isn't okay. I can't do it this way. And for the next, up until COVID, I have fought this battle of who I want to be versus what people say will make me more money. And so I crafted this whole other side of me, the storytelling expert, and it turned out to be really good at it. But it created this constant angst. And during COVID, I went, you know what? Life is short. You only get one chance around this. You're not rich doing it this way, and you weren't rich doing it the other way. So all things being equal, what are you going to do? And I was like, I want to be the funny motivational speaker. I don't want to be, I'll keep my coaching because I've built up an expertise, and people want my help, and I don't have to do anything to sell it. So I won't throw that away. And I'm in the process of getting back to who I am and making everything shift to be that funny motivational speaker who just tells stories on a stage. But anyway, that was long-winded, but that's it. That's the story.
So good. Well, I want to go back. Jeannie Robertson, I think, was very, very successful, and you knew her way, way better than I did. But from an outside perspective, is she never stopped being herself. Right. So the quirky and the personality, the language, the accent, a lot of people say, oh, well, you can't do that with that Southern accent. People are going to think that you're some country bumpkin. And It's like, well, but that's where I came from. That's who I am. If I lose that, if I try and fit in, if I try and be like all the other fill in the blank, right? All the other speakers, all the other experts, all the other consultants, you have commoditized yourself. You have artificially and pointlessly commoditized yourself. And it's funny because one of the things I say when we talk about market eminence and being kind of the category of one, as our friend Joe Calloway says, whenever people complain, oh, the meeting planners, clients, they commoditize us. It's like, they don't have to. You do such a good job commoditizing yourself that they don't, all they see is just another speaker, just another expert, just another trainer, just another coach. And so you are totally bucking that trend like Jeannie did. You're doing it your own way with your own style and humor and stories. Tell us a little bit with your keynote clients. When they hire Kelly Swanson, CSP, CPAE, all the fancy letters, what do you think they are buying? What do you think they want to put in front of their audience?
Well, I think For all of us, they are buying an experience. They're not buying what you know, and they're not buying information. We're in an information overload. Maybe at some point, the one word I can find that is congruent with all keynote speakers is that they're buying the experience we're going to create in that room. A lot of that is up to that sales call. As you know, when you're on there, they think they want one thing. They've got a very limited ask, and then you can sway them in different directions. When they book Kelly Swanson, now again, like I told you, I learned what you just said the hard way. I left who I was, became a commodity, and am now coming back. The problem is that some people who come to me really like the topic of storytelling and they want the expert. So I have to see that with a different set of eyes when they're buying a result, or, but that's not who I want to be anymore.
Yeah.
My clients are asking for something light, something funny, with a relevant message, but not a lot of content. But they want a relative message that is customized to their industry and to what they're facing today. They're coming to me if I'm effective at marketing and attracting that. They're coming to me because it's a keynote with all the feels. So they're coming in because they're tired from content and practical. And this isn't their training budget. This isn't their training day. This is, oh my gosh, we've been killed to death with data and regulation talks, all of this. Now we want somebody to come in and jazz us up. They also have always come to me for a term that many people told me not to be for many years, and that is motivation, a motivational speaker. They know what that means. They want their people to be motivated. What they really mean is, please make us feel valued for what we do, and affirm the jobs that we do and why we matter. And my favorite audiences are the ones who most need to hear how important they are, because they're not told often. So the higher up I hate to use the words up the chain, but we all get that. The higher up the chain you get, the less I want to be there. Put me in a room full of lunch ladies and it's like church in there, or put me in front of nurses or teachers or IT people who sit behind desks, people who tend to be just going through the daily things that we go through. Anyway, that was long-winded, but that's me. That's how I roll.
Kelly, I hate to break this to you, but this is a podcast. So when I ask questions, I'm looking for the answers.
Well,
None of this is long-winded. This is amazing.
Okay.
This is fantastic.
Well, good. I'm a woman.
It's like, I am doing way too much of the talking. It's like, no, you're the guest. You're doing the perfect amount of talking.
All right.
So let's say we get someone on the line. They call up. They say, is this Kelly Swanson, the funny motivational speaker? What are some of your favorite discovery questions that really surface what they want, what they need, the issue behind the issue, whether you're a really great fit for them? What are some of your favorite discovery questions?
Sure. Now, in full disclosure, I'm now with a management company and I'm not having that call. We can discuss that later, but it's very easy for me to remember because I was just doing it a year ago. So I remember favorite discovery questions to find out if we're a good fit. Well, the first thing I want to know is what led them to my door and what made them decide to call me out of all the choices that they had, because then they're going to tell me, oh my gosh, we watched your video on YouTube and I'll start to get an idea, because my work is so diverse, of what they're really noticing. Or you went and told, and we heard that story. So my first question is, what led you to me? What made you pick me out of all the choices that you have? That is a very loaded question for me. And by the way, I don't know that I do this right. That's why I have a management company, because I think somebody else does it better. But that's one of them. The next thing, which I'm not always good at, but I know is what to do, is to ask them, so tell me what you're putting together and tell me how you think I might fit into that. Normally in the past, I would have started talking and I would talk and then I'd get 10 minutes in and find out that wasn't even why they called, and I'd look like a fool. So it would be to shut up and say, well, tell me what you're planning and how you think I can fit into that. And I put on the mindset, David, that I'm a party planner, that, oh my gosh, there's a party going on. I start to look at, of course, what I can do that fits in.
Yeah.
And so I listen. Now, if I were smart, I would just repeat what they say and move on to closing. I tend to talk too much at that stage. But then they tell me, well, we're here, so I repeat, oh, this is what you're looking for. And then I'll say, well, you've probably seen a lot of videos. Let me just kind of touch on what kind of experience I like to create. Because I think, that's what they're about. Lots of humor. Don't worry. It's going to be appropriate. I want, I want your people to feel really good about what they do, because your job does matter. Anyway, you asked discovery questions, and now that's going more into I do like to ask them. And again, it depends on what you're selling. And I'm just selling a keynote speech in that regard. When I'm selling storytelling, the questions are, if they said our CEO is all into storytelling this year, because this was one of my calls, it's heavy on our list. We're meeting for one day, all of our leadership team in training. And she really wants to kick this year off with everybody understanding why storytelling is going to matter so much. Okay, Dave, my conversation is completely different than if I'm coming in. So it differs. But I also like to say, what's everybody struggling with right now? What's your industry facing? I laugh because they all say the same thing. They all think they're the only ones, but what are their jobs like right now? And what's it like for them in that region, where you're in? Because the better I understand what they're going through, the better as a motivational speaker, I can pull them in out of it. And I'll ask them things, how much entertainment do you want? I try not to get into a big conversation. The answer is to talk less, close the deal, and then go talk about what you're going to do for them.
Yes.
I used to confuse my buyer greatly by bringing too much into the conversation, when half the time the people just want to know, can you do it? Are you available? What's your fee? This is what we want. Great. Send me a contract. I can't believe how many years, David, I booked business without ever getting on the phone with anybody. It was completely closed, start to finish was by email.
Really?
Isn't that something? Now, maybe it's because my fee was at a lower place then. I don't know if the price point had something to do with it.
Yeah.
But it was, they would come to me, and I think, there you go. It goes back to, in those days, it was very clear who I was. It was like the Jeannie Lane. They come to you. They already know they want it. They went to the website. It's clear. The only questions left are you available and how much are you? And I was too chicken to try to even negotiate. So they were quick conversations.
Hey now, what a great episode, right? Are you ready to build your own market eminence game plan using the power of speaking, publishing, and podcasting? Book a chat with me to build your plan and see if and how I might help you further. The link is doitmarketing.com/call. No sales team, no pressure, no goofballs, just you and me having a CEO to CEO chat about what's possible for you and your company. Hop on with me, doitmarketing.com/call. And now, let's jump right back into the interview. So those are fantastic questions. I think we can learn so much about ask the question, shut the lips. Ask the next question, shut the lips. Because, we try to be, I think two things are happening, or three. We're trying to be helpful, so we talk more, not helpful. We're trying to show how smart we are, so we talk more, not helpful. We're trying to be liked, so we talk more, not helpful. So I always feel the sale is made when they're talking, not when we're talking, right? So get them talking about their event, their goals, their people, their problems, their challenges, their team, all of those different things that you brilliantly just laid out the template for what those questions would sound like. And then you could almost, the joke would be, how little can you say to get them to go, Kelly, you are the perfect fit for our events? I didn't say anything. I didn't say a word. I just asked questions. You then put all of this stuff on the table, and it's like, this is what we want. It's like, okay, you're a perfect fit. Because number one, you're one of the few people that listened, and you're one of the few people that actually comes across as that you care, that you actually care about a good fit, a good experience, and what the client and what the audience rather walks away with.
One thing, can I say something real quick about
please.
one thing that I think often speakers struggle with or try to do, myself included, is the buyer is buying a speech for a time slot in a conference. And the speaker goes in and starts selling how they're going to help their people do X, Y, Z. And this person didn't care about that. And you're trying to sell like a trainer when they're buying a keynote speech. I see that in our industry. They're approaching a keynote slot product and selling it like a trainer. And the two don't go together.
So true. Oh my gosh. And we could do a whole show just on that. So I come out of a training background and about 10 years ago, so I'd done a lot of, seminar style speaking, more so than keynotes. About 10 years ago, I started doing a little bit more keynoting, right? Main stage, opening session, whatever you want to call it. And I talked to one of our speaking colleagues and I said, well, what's your advice? And the advice that I got was, and you said it brilliantly. You said light content. The advice that I got was, well, David, you have to understand when you're doing a keynote, you're doing a general session, content is not your friend. And I was like, ooh, that's a good bumper sticker. That's a great soundbite. Content is not your friend. I am so content heavy. I was so content heavy in some of the other modes that I operate in. I said, well, then if it's not content, what is it? And she said, it's two things: make them think and make them laugh. What's your take? What do you think ultimately? If a CEO or a founder or even a trainer is they want to do the kind of keynote that gets a great reception, what would your advice be? What should they be leaving out and not bringing onto that stage? And what should they be adding or putting in that is not obvious?
The whole question is tricky because, first of all, I agree and a little bit disagree with that. I wouldn't say content is not your friend. I would just say it's not king. It could be queen, and it needs to be the content. Well, first of all, I'm not going to say you need to do anything, because as soon as I say you need to do it, there is no one right way.
That's right.
And every speech is created to build an experience with the intent that you have for that speech. It's not just about the speech; it's what you may have on the back end, whatever. So there's many factors in what I would tell you to take to that stage. It's too simplified a question. If you've narrowed it down to that simple a question, you've already lost. But and first of all, not everybody can make everybody laugh. And yes, humor's gold, but not everybody can do it, which is why I go to the experience word every time. Your content is queen, whatever. Content-wise, I believe when you're in the keynote, it's broad strokes, the keynote of the conference. You're whittling it, you whittle down. You're going up to higher elevated views of your content. You're going to shifts in perspective. You're going to big why behind all the how matters and send them home with the how. You're not doing a data dump. It's too much. It's too saturated. They didn't come in with pens in hand, which is where we get tripped up in our industry, because I've heard people get on stage and go, well, I'm not that kind of keynote speaker that's going to bring you all to your feet in a standing ovation with a guitar solo and you walk away with nothing. I'm going to give you something to learn. I'm like, don't do that. They aren't coming in here for a lecture or like with the same expectation as a breakout session. Now, will more content be required in some cases? Yes, it'll be dependent upon what that client told you they wanted and the purpose of this experience that you're coming in for. But many of these keynotes, if you start to watch them, they aren't filled with data. They're filled with profound thoughts, shifts in perspectives, and possibly 3 or a certain number of pillars, buckets that we can put everything in so it's sticky, memorable, and repeatable. passion, perspective, purpose, see, believe, do,
Yes.
often it can be that. And I'm even fighting that, because why can't you just have one core concept that you drill into in your keynote? There's no shoulds. So what do you need when a trainer is coming into the space of keynoting? My first question is, what do you need this keynote to do for your business? And what's the intent of it? Because this is an experience, but it's also a strategic sales piece you're taking to the stage. And many speakers are using keynotes to fill their funnels for training companies. And so if you're writing a speech, I'm going to look at that thing completely different.
Yeah.
Than, it's how you want to be positioned. Now, making it more basic, the difference in a keynote speech versus a training session is the keynote is more experience oriented, and that can be achieved in many different elements, as we've seen in our business. Humor is one way. I think story is one of the highest elements you can have. For years, people have said the best keynote speakers are the best storytellers. That's not a fair statement, because somebody could do an incredible interactive piece, or Colette Carlson's prop piece, or Tracy Brown's games that she's playing, or Brian. They could do something that I would say created the same energy in the room with value. I think that's to some degree important, and have achieved. So it's what elements are you going to pick that puts together this experience that is entertaining, that is relevant. It still has to have value and be in service to the audience. That's the difference. That's why they're not booking a comedian out of the comedy clubs. It's got to be of service to the audience. And you've got a million different choices in how you're going to create that experience.
Well, and I think we've all been not hoodwinked, but maybe disappointed when you have someone that brings the trainer sensibility to a keynote, right? Too much, dry, boring. I should have brought a pen. This does not work in front of 500 people. It might work in a seminar room in front of 20 people, does not work in a big ballroom in front of 500 people. And then similarly, we've seen the keynoters go to the training room and go, where's the substance? This is all just fluff. This is, and it's not that the program is bad. It's that it's a mismatch with the format, right? So the how to think, what to believe, these shifts in perspective, absolutely brilliant. And I love the way that you kind of broke that down. That's the DNA of a great keynote, is it has that effect. Changes the way you think, changes, your perspective, or your frame. It reframes a subject or a topic that's important to that audience, or it gives them a new lens onto what to believe, right? What's really true, what's really important, etc. Training does need to have content, but when you mode switch in the wrong context, it's like, I don't want a training-based keynote, and I don't want a keynote-based training. I want the keynote to do the keynote's job, and the training to do the training's job.
Yeah, and I'm gonna confuse things even more. The trainers, and my husband, I've never been a trainer. My husband was. I know what that work looks like. It is very different. Different buyers, different money, different everything.
Totally.
Now, there may be overlap, but they're very different. But I'm going to go to the middle here, which is the breakout or the workshop or whatever.
Yes.
It gets even muddier, because two things I want to say. I want to say a story that I think is important. Let me say that first, and then I'll go to breakouts. A long time ago, I did a breakout session, and speaker friend of mine, did another breakout session. She'd been coming for years. I came for the first time. She was upset because they booked me as the keynote speaker the next year. And she said, why is it? I've been trying to get that keynote slot for years. Why did you get it? And I said, I'll tell you exactly why, because I was in yours as well. You went in it with a breakout session. I went to my breakout with a keynote. I was auditioning for a keynote slot. Now, I took a risk in that the people sitting in that room may have felt too much like a keynote, but I knew what I was auditioning for. I knew the intent. I wanted to be seen as this kind of speaker. Now another thing I want to inject into the conversation is I did an event that was bigger than I'm used to. And so I didn't get the keynote because I was like, oh, why didn't I get the keynote? I would have been a great at a keynote. Yeah, because your keynote was a flipping celebrity, because their keynotes are all so far out of your league. Regular speakers don't even apply for the, whatever. And what happened was all of me and my peers got breakouts. So I'm thinking of it like it's a breakout. Okay. Because in my mind, breakout is we've got more of we expect more content. We've got our pens in our hands. We've come to go drill down deep into a topic. That's the expectation. I start asking around to my peers. Thank goodness in the green room for breakouts. That's how much bigger this was than I was used to.
Yeah.
They're all doing their keynotes in the breakout session. And I went, well, wait a minute. Nobody told me I could do that, because I'd much rather give a keynote in general than a workshop. I'd rather go just do my favorite stuff. So I went into the audience and I did a keynote, and one man in there said, "You were the most impactful speaker I've seen in this whole conference." Now, that could have been one, and every other person in there hated it. But that threw me for a loop, David, because it started to change. Training is different.
Yeah.
But now in these breakout sessions, what does define content versus you would have said, oh, you don't go in a breakout session and do that. Well, they are. And were they less served because of it? And the only assessment I can make there, and then I'll just leave it because it's kind of like dropping a little bomb in the room, is it's all in how you frame it to the people sitting there. Yeah. It's all the way I framed it to them in that breakout session. And I always do this to protect myself from those who might have said I did not have enough content. I seed for the more content. I call it my read more option all the way through my program. So I hit them with that profound point, and I know what you're thinking. Well, where do we find the stories? Conversation for another day. I got a resource in that free gift that's going to take you down that road. And so I can stay at a higher level in the breakout, talk to people. Of course, I'm going to be a little less off script, but it didn't have to be. I could have been just as much on script, but I'm framing it so that and I did more in that room of preparing them for what this is going to be like than I would do in a keynote by saying, I'm going to look at it. We're going to look at the why in here, because if you don't understand the why, the how will never come into play. And I'll send you home with all the how later. So that's even changed my perspective about what we have to do, because the whole, what is content? People used to say stories aren't content. And I'm like, I beg to differ. Just because you couldn't pull out 3 talking points or it's woven in, entertainment and content no longer has to be a decision of this or that.
Yeah.
Anyway, don't get me started.
Absolutely. Wait. We're not just going to listen to this episode. There are downloads, there are resources, there are links, there are bonuses waiting for you on this episode's page when you go over to doitmarketing.com/podcast. That's right, doitmarketing.com/podcast. Grab the notes right under this episode. See you over there. Well, I'm channeling our listeners. Their ears perked up when you said, I'm going to send them down a different road with the resources that they're going to get. How do you frame that lead magnet or that resource or that takeaway item?
I am all about one simple action that can be done quickly without a lot of fuss from my audience. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but that's the way I operate. So I'm choosing a URL or a QR code. I'm not even having them pull out their phones anymore. Click on that. You're in. At the moment, I'm not grabbing their emails from it because I've changed this process, but I'm working on getting it to make them give me their emails. But I want quick and easy. I want to ask you for one thing and send you to one place. Okay. And I want it to be attached to my website. Don't know if that's right or wrong, but why wouldn't I be leading everybody to my home station so I can have them on my website? And then what I do is the QR code or whatever it is, I don't use PowerPoint, but I'll give them a slide ahead of time and say, would you please 3/4 of the way in, pop this up because I'm going to, or all the way through one slide, and I'll reference it. And I've given it its own link, kellyfree.com, that can be said easily because my own website is too long, but kellyfree.com. And so what I've done is throughout my keynote, I've picked, and it depends on the audience. In the free gift page are resources, a digital copy of my book, The Story Formula, because I don't care about selling it. I'll give it. And I'm always putting in a tribute I wrote for them, something spicy that I know they're going to want to go get. Go get the video you just saw up there, blah, blah, blah. And I advertise for other things. It's just one landing page, whatever. And I ask for more business. But then throughout the speech, whenever there's a point where I know there's more I could tell them about that, then, and I'll do it in different ways. I'll say something like, story is the most important tool you have. I could talk all week about it, but that's not why I'm here today. Right. I'm just here to be light and, funny and light and make you think, but go get my book. You're going to want it. And then, and I'll just reframe it. I don't really text it out anymore. I don't have to. It's just intuitive. Sure. But by the time I get to the end, if it's the audience I wanted to, they're going to that QR code because they've heard something that they want. Is that what you were asking me?
Oh my gosh, so process? Good. I mean, that's a masterclass in onstage lead generation.
Oh, good. I didn't even know I was doing it. Well, and it's also, here's one tip. There's 4 more online. You're not going to know how to do this. So I put a template online. Yes. And then that frees you, David, of having to stuff. And for everybody who thinks their value was tied into how many nuggets of wisdom they could give them in a short amount of time, poof, you're freeing it. And you can put it right in front of them if you want. You can put it in a handout. I'm too lazy for that. I'm not going to do handouts for 500 people. It's a lot of time.
Exactly. So good. Well, I wanted to ask you about customization. There's multiple schools of thought. I think one extreme school of thought, old school, is our friend Larry Winget, who said, I don't customize a single word. I could customize it, but then I'd have to charge you less. Meaning that he has this so dialed in that you're getting, quote unquote, the show, insert tape, hit play, that's what you're buying. And I think there's maybe 1 or 2 other people that are sort of in that extreme lack of customization school of thought. Then there's the other side of the spectrum, which is extreme customization. It's like, I'm going to have, 6 pre-meeting calls. I'm going to interview 10 of your top performers. I'm going to interview your board of directors. I'm going to, this is going to be, your thumbprint's going to be all over this keynote or this presentation. And it's going to be the one and only time that I ever deliver it for the International Auto Tire Association. Somewhere in between, I think, is some level of sanity. How do you like to approach customization?
It depends. Let me say, stepping away from the word customization, that most of our clients want our topic to be relevant and for the speaker to feel fully present in the room with this audience, like it's a conversation, not a performance.
Yes.
So they may think that looks like customization because they don't know what other word to use. Just like when they ask for interaction, when what they really want is for their audience to be engaged, not necessarily to do something stupid with them that they hated doing. Do you see? So we could be getting tripped up in how we're going to, why they would ask for that in the first place. No. Now going back to customization, I do the whole gamut. I've come in there and wash, rinse, and repeat. This is the same way I can give it to somebody else. I've come in there and I've written a tribute to them that's a video for them with pictures of their people in it. I've come in, I always say, create a concrete template and just tweak the application of your content. So customization can come in the application, and it can be as simple as, so how does this apply to your industry? Talk amongst yourselves, customize, all of that. I'm going to go back to what I said earlier when it comes to, should we customize? Should we not? First of all, that's all out the window. You should create an experience. Customization is one way to get there. If that's all you've got, because the rest of your stuff's pretty mediocre, then heck yeah, customize it. If that's what you've got to justify charging them $30,000 to come, then heck yeah, have fun, go at it. There are many different elements that create this experience. Customization is just one of them. And again, it depends. What is your intent with this keynote? If you are trying to sell your training company at the end of this, or sell your coaching services, then I'm going to say that this experience needs to, there's a list of things we're trying to accomplish. Not just the transfer of information or to be funny and entertaining. We may be saying we need these people to see that we know what we're talking about, that they've got a problem and we understand what it is, that I'm the one who can fix it and nobody else can, and that our training team is set up to help them. You're giving a sales presentation up there. Your keynote is not just to get a standing ovation and hope they all go join your institute. No, your goal is to subtly sell them on you, and therefore, one element that would be really cool, for example, is I'll often ask people, David, can you coach on the spot? Can you take anybody's issue or problem right here, hear it and answer it and sound like a flippin' wizard? Oh, yeah, I can. Then we need to figure out how to recreate that moment in your keynote, because not just because you'll look like that's like when I tried to figure out, how do I put story makeovers in my keynote? Not trying to figure it out anymore, because my intent is not to drive them to the academy like it was at that point. Yeah. So if your intent is to sell that, even if you can't sell from the stage, which you can't, we're trying to subtly do that. Yeah. For David to work in a piece where he's coaching on the spot right there in that room in a 10 to 15 minute increment, brings down the house and does what you need it to do. Those are the questions we need to be asking. I think we've made our questions too antiquated. They're too flat. And I'm going to, if anybody's going to convention, I'm doing a program before pre-con, and that is all that I'm going to be talking about. Is if I'm doing it on writing a speech, and if this is the conversation, how to write a speech, we've already lost with AI. Is what are we creating, and what we need to have an elevated conversation about this. So thanks for letting me start it here.
So powerful, really great. Now, when you say, if you're great at on the spot, and this could be on the spot anything, right? On the spot story makeover or leadership coaching or presentation skills or anything, would you bring the person up onto the stage? Would you go out into the audience with a microphone? What's the best method there?
It depends. And you also have to frame it right. You better make sure you're setting yourself up for success. So that the next question would become, under what scenario do we need to highlight? If I can get somebody to ask me a question, that's where the first part of the work comes in. Then it becomes, well, okay, I need somebody. All you really need is somebody stating this issue they're having and you getting to help them with it. David, it could look like you bringing them up on stage. It could look like you planted it in advance and you worked all of this out. I've done story makeovers where we started the work before the conference even started, and getting it prepared. It's a creative decision in how you want to present it to the room. Now, you want to look like a rock star. You can say, does anybody have a question? You can come out to them. I'm not a fan in a keynote of walking out into the room. And here's why. Because I, as an audience member, am very lazy, and I don't want to have to move at all. And the whole stage was created so that all of us could see you from where we sit. And you start walking through the room, and now you've given me just a little head to look like, and I can't figure out where you are even in the room. I'm going to disconnect. I'm going to disengage, and I'm not going to pay any attention anymore because you've excluded me from the view and from your conversation. Now, if you're in a smaller room where everybody can see. I break that rule in a breakout session because I'm just not as worried about that. So yeah, in a keynote, time is everything. They are not going to give you very often 90 minutes or an hour like I like. You may have an hour and find out when you're headed up there, you only have 35 minutes. Happens all the time. So another thing I'm looking for in when we create these kind of moments is time. How much time is it going to take to get them up to the stage? Just somebody walking all the way, how are you going to, well, if you're going to bring them up here, what's the shortest path? Those are the things you just really have to think it all the way through. But for the trainers on the call or the people who really have that wizardry, I can do a makeover anywhere and guarantee you that I'm going to get business and I never had to sell a word because they're watching you work your magic. And it's a cool parlor trick. So it's a great thing to do. You could take questions from the audience. You could put them on little pieces of paper, put them in a bowl, say, okay, we're going to pick them. And you could pick them and you could pick the one you already wrote. And you reading theirs, you could stage this and talk about engaged, present, relevant to the conversation, customized. I mean, game over for the next person after you if they don't have something to that level of wow factor.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So good. So good. Well, as we're landing the plane here, I know for a fact that people are going to want to get connected and stay connected to more Kelly Swanson brilliance. Where can we send people? Website, resources, links. How can people get more Kelly Swanson genius?
Well, I'm all over the place and I don't know exactly who your people are. But let me just give you one link to my free network on Mighty Networks platform, because that might be a good starting point.
Sure.
If you're not going just to the regular social media channels, and that's storyimpactnetwork.com.
Excellent.
If you want resources, that's where they're in there in abundance. Storyimpactnetwork.com. That's a great place.
Totally fantastic.
And otherwise, if you're just a fan of humor and motivation, then just go to YouTube, go to Facebook, go find me somewhere there.
And you're under Kelly Swanson on all those platforms.
Ish. You'll be able to motivational.
Well, they could also go, am I right that they could go to motivational speaker kellyswanson.com and then all those buttons up at the top, the social buttons would work?
They can go to my website. Yeah, motivational speaker kellyswanson.com. And I know it's long. It's a long story. Don't get me started. It's a long story, but if you Google me, you'll find me. If you say Kelly Swanson speaker, you'll find me. So, and I love that. I'd love for your people to come find me and say hello or follow me or whatever.
They absolutely will. And for listeners, that is directly under this episode in the show notes. Those links that Kelly just shared will be hot, clickable, and ready for you at thesellingshow.com. So check those out and make sure to connect with Kelly. StoryImpactNetwork.com is also the gateway drug to all things amazing. So definitely check that out as well. Kelly Swanson, you're a rock star. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for dropping all this wisdom.
I feel the same way about you. I'm honored that you would have me on your show, even though I keep talking over you.
And that wraps up another episode of The Selling Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe, tell a friend, go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thesellingshow.com. See you next time.